All right, so
maybe I can throw this out. We can go wherever right now, but a couple things that we could say so much, right? We're just touching on things. But one of the things that came to mind as we were talking last time, which was a minute ago, was there are like a variety of tensions that again you said, I wish I'd got some of this before we got married. So some of these are so basic, but we don't talk about them, and so it might be just helpful. So a couple things come to mind. So one of them is the fact that I'm selfish. Okay, so that's the result of the fall and all that. Great. Here's some other things. The woman I married is not like me. Meaning, she's a woman. And I don't know how women think. And we laugh at that sometimes, like, who knows how a woman thinks? I really don't. Like, I do not know how a woman thinks, and neither do you. And they don't know how we think. Like, so, in other words, God has made us to complement each other. We're not clones of each other. So I don't want to go, this is not to say generalizations, those are always really dangerous. It's just that God has constructed us in such a way so that we are supposed to complement each other. So we see different things about relationships. We see different things about our children that we need to be attentive to. But that causes tension and it's supposed to be a means of helping us grow closer together and of being what we're supposed to be, especially as a mother and a father. But it can't be a source of conflict. And I'm not going to know what you're thinking unless you say it to me. But that's a source of conflict or tension because, here's a common situation for a lot of folks. You come home from work, especially as a man, I'm out of words.
Right.
Like, I don't know how you guys do it, quite honestly. Like, I talk all day long with people. You find that hard to believe, I know.
This is the first time you let me know that.
So, I got nothing to... if I was married, I'd come home, I would have nothing to say. When you guys get home, even though, like, on a natural tendency or whatever, you might be more or less out of words, you can't not talk. Like, that's the place where you most have to talk. But you work hard. Not to say that women don't either. They might be stay-at-home mom. They might be bank exec. So we're both working hard. But you can come home and it's like, man, I just need to relax. And I just want to be alone. But if you're married, and especially if you got kids, you can't do that. So that drive home, like, the radio should be off.
That's your time.
The radio should be off, and you should be praying like crazy. Lord, I know what I'm about to walk into. I need some help. Calm me, equip me, help me to be attentive to the things I need to be attentive to. Like, I know Paco Gavrilidis, who a lot of the guys know. Paco said one time, Inez actually said this to me one time, his wife. She said, "Do you know what he does when he comes home?" This is when he and I were working together. I said, "No." The kids were younger then. First thing he would do, he would walk in, he'd say, "Honey, I know your day's been crazy watching these kids. I got the kids for a half hour. Go do whatever you need to do. You want to go for a walk? Great. You want to pray? Great. You want to go to the gym? Go to the gym. I got the kids." That's amazing, right? That's a great model.
Yeah.
So part of it is just we're not like each other. And we can get frustrated over the fact that, why don't you understand what's going on in my head? But I remember, in my own life, the woman I almost married at one point, I used to get so frustrated. I wish I could just take you and put you in my head, because I don't know how to articulate what I'm thinking, and I don't have a clue what you're thinking. So that's a source of tension.
They get in your head.
They mess with you, all right.
How do you, sorry to interrupt, but when you talk about the tension and you say that we think differently, which I completely agree with, because I think one of the biggest faults is I'm driving home, she says something, but because I think differently, I then use my thought process to interpret what she says, and now I'm stewing the rest of the way home, and it's completely different, but now there's tension. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. So hopefully we learn from experience to go, I have to be able to say something just gently and in charitable. Can you explain that to me? I don't know that I know what you mean by that. So the beauty of marriage is supposed to be, that you and I can talk about anything, and you can't go anywhere. Because we promised, right? Rich or poor, sickness, health, and if it's hard to have a roommate, it's hard to become one flesh with someone.
But sometimes I think men, speaking for myself, we get a little frustrated because it's not just what you say or how you say it, but even where and when you say it.
Totally. That was the next thing I was going to say. Okay. So sometimes, I know people who have rules like this as a couple. They'll just say, here's what happens. I know this is what happens. I'm going to come home, or you're going to come home. Maybe I'm the stay-at-home dad. You're the working mom. You come home, and there's something that we know we need to talk about. And I don't want to go there right now because I don't have the energy for this. And if I don't have the energy for this, and we're going to keep pushing on this, I'm going to give in. And if I give in, I'm going to become bitter. And if I become bitter, it's going to come out.
And I don't want to lose.
And I don't want to lose. So couples do this. I mean, this is a great thing to do. You make rules, and they say, can we just make a rule that after 8 o'clock, or whatever the time might be, we're not going to talk about anything that might potentially become conflictual, or that's going to be exhausting. And what we're going to do is we're going to call each other on that. Just an agreement. It's not because we don't want to talk about something. It's because we recognize that's too important to talk about in that much time, or when we're tired. And so you say something like, it's after 8. And we agreed together we weren't going to do this. And I know you really want to talk about this. And I'm not telling you I don't want to talk about it. I'm just saying, how about Saturday? We just go get coffee. And we sit down and we hash this out. Because I don't want to get sharp with you right now. And I know it might happen. Those are practical things that if you can do.
So it's very practical.
Huge.
And going back to the last video that we just made a few minutes ago, was you said that women come into the office and they say things. There's things that are on their heart and mind that they don't feel they can talk about with their husband, that they haven't perhaps talked or tried and he didn't hear them. I think a lot of us guys would be, what is it that is concerning women in general, married women like our own wives? What is it they come in with concern about that they can't?
The biggest thing is what you just said. He's not listening. And I feel like when I do want to talk, he just either says, I don't want to talk about that, or he shuts me down, or it's something. Communication is, you said that earlier when we were off camera, but that really is. That is the root of the problem. Yeah, we don't communicate well.
Yeah, and I think for myself, it was the listening. I've got a house full of girls, so you get in that guy mode, call it what you want, but it's try to fix some things. Or when I ask a certain thing and I hope the answer is a one-word answer, and it goes on, and I am just struggling. Like, why do we always talk about this? Or here's the broken record again. It keeps coming around. I thought we fixed it. We talked about it. Yeah, I had the solution. And sometimes I'm learning, especially now with the kids leaving the house, and the communication's at a different level, which I like. I really do, because I'm getting to know my wife a different way, or maybe the way I knew her before we got married, or something like that. But it's awesome, is what I'm saying. But I have to find myself listening and just don't try to fix and solve things.
But go ahead.
No, I'm good.
No. You just said something which, here's what happens all the time. I'm really cautious of this right now. So that it can feel like the problem's with the guy all the time.
Yes. That's what I feel.
And meaning, you don't listen enough. Well, there's times when that's true. So the guy has to be aware of the fact that, okay, I need to dial up my capacity to listen. That's not how I would communicate, but you're not me and you're not a man. So I need to change. Okay, or you need to grow. So do you. You, Mrs. So-and-so, you need to grow. Because there's not one selfish person in this relationship, there's two. And what will happen is, and this happens all the time in the discussion about relationship between the sexes, men are just understand women. Very important to understand women. And women need to understand men. And sometimes a woman has to recognize, I need to say less. Sometimes the man needs to say more.
Jason, you got to work on that.
So, just like we need to grow and expand, so do our sisters, right? And so, and the only way that's going to happen is if we're able to be honest with each other and be able to say things like, honey, I know I I do a lousy job of listening sometimes, so I'm trying to grow in that. Sometimes you just say, and I acknowledge that, like that's a problem of mine. I'm trying to do better at that. Can I ask a request too? Can we, because the challenge isn't just mine, it's yours. Can we be sensitive to each other's needs here? And can you say that more concisely?
I love it. It's hard to call that in play. When you're in play, you're like, hey, I got the game gear on here now. I'm not going to, I lost. It's the sense of losing it that, it's not all about me.
That's why you can't do it in the middle of the game.
No.
That's the pre-game or the post-game. That's like, okay, that blew up big time. We got to come back.
Out
exactly.
Say,
that's why it's really helpful, whether it's the watch thing and go, hey, it's after 8. Like, when things are good, and it's a good time to talk, like go out on a date and just go, honey, I want to thrive. Like, I know I'm not the guy I want to be right now. So when things are good, not when it's in the heat of the moment, just say, can we... I would love, even something as simple as, it would be great to go sit and talk with someone to find out how we can continue to get better, because we're good, but I'd like to get better. And guys are afraid, that's a sign of, oh no, we're struggling. But when my golf game's a mess, I go talk to my pro, right? I don't even hesitate.
Well, even if it's not
that's a
right?
game.
Right. Jack Nicklaus used to say he practiced his swing the most when he was doing well because he wanted to groove it in. So.
If you want to excel at something, you go talk to someone. You guys, if you're married, you can't be objective about your marriage. You're in it.
So what are you saying? That we should all seek out marriage counselors?
That it's profitable at least once a year to sit down with someone and just say, help us put together some goals for the year.
My question is, how do you, because I feel like sometimes, even when I'm listening, I'm not somehow I got these guardrails on, right? So she's talking, I'm listening, but I'm still in the back of my head, I've got my opinion, right? So I'm kind of dissecting what she's saying so that I can give my rebuttal. And as Tom says, win. How do you, as a man, how do you open up, get that out of there so that I can actively listen and try and...
Acknowledge it first to yourself, right? I know this about me. Everybody's hyper competitive.
Right.
Right? Even the people who are non-athletic, they're competitive. I want to win. So acknowledge it, and you've got. It's another reason why you got to pray. You got to pray individually, and you got to pray as a couple.
Prior, going into the conversation.
Yep. And then you just got to talk. And so even something as simple as, honey, we can't keep score. I don't want to keep score. I know I have a tendency to keep score. That's my fallen disposition, is to want to win. If I want to win, it means we lose.
Yeah.
So, help me to know what are the things that I can do. This is a vulnerable thing to say, right? Help me to know things I can do to be a better listener. And then what you're hoping for is that's reciprocated. That's why you do it.
Right.
That's why you do it.
Model behavior.
Example.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then you say, and so some things are offered. And then you can say back, hopefully she says, can you help me to know what I can do? And if she doesn't say, can I offer a couple things to you? Those are, so you just say,
dangerous words.
but you have to. You have to see this. That you have to. I mean, that's the problem. So again, it's like I'm dancing around because I can't be. You're not the problem. The problem is you're both selfish. And so if you can't acknowledge that, you're living in fantasy land. And you just said, hey, wait a minute, I just exposed myself, and I said, I would like to know what I can do to love you better. Or whatever the question was. And you got something. Something was offered.
Right.
You know you're going to get something. Well, great, praise God. It wasn't a setup so I can tell you what's wrong. It was honest. It was, no, I want to know how to love you better. How would I know how, even something like the 5 love languages? How would I know what your love language is unless you told me? I can't read your mind. My love language might be physical touch. Your love language might be acts of service. And I'm sitting there wanting to be with you physically all the time. And you're just like, why don't you ever go and mow the lawn? Well, why would I do that? I would figure you want to reciprocate what my language is. No, that's not how we're wired. So I don't know that intuitively. You have to tell me that. But we got to get out of this mindset that the guy's the problem. I mean, we're the problem, all of us in this race which has fallen.
And it's really hard to share that how do I say this? Not share the selfishness, but to point out that to say it's both of us, especially in the heat of battle, to drop the shield, to drop the knife, whatever weapons you come in with, or to your example to say, help me be a better version of myself for you or our marriage, especially when the responses come back and you're on the defense at that point, and you want to throw the offense right back on, and it's all about you. And that's hard to juggle. That's really hard to just breathe and just listen and take the next steps, but the baby steps, I think, in the right direction. One of the things as we have talked here throughout the day in our video sessions is one comes to mind. I was actually in downtown Detroit, one of those billboards, and it was a black billboard with white letters, and it said, "Thanks for inviting me to the wedding. How's the marriage? God." And so I think as we talk about this, I think what really leans and resonates with me is prayer, the praying together. I know I could, for my marriage, I'm really trying to get that back. Rather than just come to the church and we do our own thing, is just do it together. And I love the story the couple shared from San Antonio. But it's hard. I think all of us guys, whether sitting right in this room or even on watching the video, that's really hard. I think that's where, at least when I can open up and say about my marriage, that's where we struggle the most. I get very competitive because I want to say, it's not just me. It's not. I'm quit being the victim. I'm a victim too. And you throw that out there and you try to be open, and it does make some progress. And then here it's short term, and then you're going to go back at it again and again and again. And then you have the good day, and you have the what just happened.
But see, it's also the difference between applying like good communication skills versus good communication skills within a Christian marriage. And the difference is huge, because within a Christian marriage, it means you're able to just pause at times and go, can we just pray right now? Because we need to do that. Can we just stop for a second and pray? And it means, it also calls to mind, if there's one thing, we're going to probably do a series in Lent on prayer. The crisis for most people's lives, the reason why we're not making the growth in our lives on a human level is because we're not praying in the way that we need to pray. Like especially as men, like we have got to learn to see prayer as basic as oxygen. I have got to get into a committed daily habit of prayer. If I don't do that, the way John Paul would say it, you are a Christian at risk. You're just ready to get kicked off. Because if I'm not praying, if I'm not plugged into God on a daily basis, then when the sharp word is said, I'm on my own fuel, and I'm going to run you over.
You told me to get in the game. I'm in.
Yeah. You want to fight? Let's go. Right? So it's the difference between just living, trying to follow, good advice from a counselor out there with regards to marriage relationships versus, no, we're a Christian couple. And so we're asking him to sanctify our homes.
I think one of the things, too, that comes to mind as you say this, Father, is we have to be able to, sometimes guys have to be able to share it with other guys, right? We discuss what's going on in our lives, perhaps even in our marriage. Hopefully we have a friend or two that we're close enough with that we are willing to be open. And if you're the one who's doing the listening to your friend, hopefully you can encourage them, point them back to the concept of, hey, buddy, you need to pray. You need to be spending more time in prayer. Or we may also want to encourage our fellow man to take that first step to sacrifice, to say, all right, I know I'm in the battle, as Tom said, to win, but now I'm going to step back and I'm going to not seek victory like I'm conquering, but rather I'm going to give up my own selfishness. I'm going to set it aside because I want to invest or preserve this greater good, our relationship, our family, our children. And you have to be conscious enough to sometimes say, I'm stepping back. I'm going to take my foot off the pedal and listen up.
And one of the things that one of the ways that manifests itself is in a Christian marriage, just like in Christian friendship, you're making a point to go to each other at times and go, ask yourself, when's the last time you did this? Honey, I'd just like to repent.
Mm-hmm.
Not simply to say I'm sorry. I would like to repent and to ask, will you forgive me? Because which is very different than I'm sorry. I'm sorry isn't asking for you to respond somehow. But to ask the other person, will you forgive me? That's huge. The world doesn't talk like that. Christians talk like that. That's part of the daily relationship between, because we are broken and because we are inclined to be selfish, we're going to hurt each other. Please God, we're not going to do it intentionally, but we're going to hurt each other. My oldest sister, when she got married to my brother-in-law, I remember she said, they're married 40 some years now. And she said to him, I know I'm going to hurt you. I'm telling you right now, it's the day of the wedding. I know I'm going to do it. I'm telling you right now, I'm never going to do it intentionally. At least I hope. When I do, please come to me and tell me so that I can ask you to forgive me and I can repent.
She said that as a 22-year-old? I was like,
my oldest sister. My sisters are the holy people in the family, not me. But that's how Christians live. I know you do. That's how Christians live. That's Christian marriage. You know, you're getting on your knees in front of each other, repenting and asking God to forgive you and asking the other to forgive you, as opposed to just going to confession. That's great, but you need to ask the other person to forgive you too, not just God, right? So there's some practical things that we've talked about. Yes. Find, like set goals. I mean, like even something as simple as that. We're in our work, you always set goals. What are my goals and objectives for this year? How many people have goals and objectives for their marriage? Right. Well, I mean, like that's work. That's great, but that's not the most important part. This is the most important part. It's worth getting goals for your marriage for the the next 6 months. What's our Lenten goal going to be as a couple? How are we going to get there? And then we talk about it. Sitting down and talking with somebody potentially once a year, just saying like, we just want to go in for like a tune-up, not because we're struggling, maybe we are, but we just want to get better, always better. Making a commitment to pray individually every day, making a commitment to pray together as a couple, and having those conversations where you can just say, can you just help me to know how to be better for you? Those are hard as rock practicalities that we can put in place.